I have a lot of fragrances I need to catch up on, and one in particular that I've been waiting to review, but time just didn't permit itself. But today we are here. I got this little guy. We're going to talk about it. Welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the afternoon. Without further ado, guys, let's jump straight into this. We have Azzaro's The Most Wanted Eau de Toilette Intense. And before we even get into the description of this, which I am going to keep it brief, especially since we're dealing with a sample kit here, is I want to switch screens real quick and go to, there we go. Okay, perfect. I want to make sure that was going to the right screen. I wanted to just show you guys, here's the screen for Azzaro, but I wanted to just show you guys, see, The Most Wanted. These are the three that we're dealing with here. Azzaro, The Most Wanted Intense, Azzaro, The Most Wanted Parfum, which I believe is the one a lot of people talk about. Don't quote me on that, but just due to the bottle color, that's the one I'm familiar with seeing. And then we have Azzaro's The Most Wanted. I don't know if that's an EDP. I think it might be, though, because the one we're doing today is an EDT. The other one's a Parfum. This is probably the middle of the road one. Can we tell? I can't. But nonetheless, who cares? Today specifically, we are dealing with The Most Wanted Intense Eau de Toilette from Azzaro. So I just wanted to clarify that before we get into the nitty gritty. So you guys are knowing that I'm talking about the EDT, which from what I've seen a lot of people reviewing online, a lot of people jump across this one to go to EDP or Parfum. So this might be a good review for some of you guys because we're kind of going off the beaten path. We're still roughly in the vicinity of Most Wanted, and this is probably the original since it's an EDT. Before I read anything, let's just jump straight into initial thoughts on the fragrance. Let's give you guys some out the gate reference material for how I feel about this fragrance. I have no background with this fragrance. I don't really mess with Azzaro, not for any personal reasons. It's just a fragrance I haven't come across. I think it's one of those things where when I think about the chrome fragrances and stuff like that, a lot of those fragrances seem older to me. But I think these are fairly recent. Yeah, The Most Wanted Intense was launched in 2024, so fairly new fragrance. It's just I never really see it a lot. That's another thing, in the Sephoras and stuff like that. A lot of times they're sold out. They're not really in discounters, so maybe that's why I haven't come across it. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it online, but, if I actually searched it more specifically, I probably would find a lot of feedback and material. So initial thoughts on the test strip, guys, is that it's very open and fresh. How would I say this without looking at a note breakdown? The personal touches I get on the fragrance is it's a bit alcohol-y, not as a note, but what I'm basically saying is that this particular EDP hasn't dried down very well yet, so I think I'm still getting a little bit of that wet alcohol come through. The fragrance is so fresh, though, that there's not a lot of distinct notes that come out to me. As of right now, I get slightly metallic, slightly aquatic, touch of sweet. It's not a sweet, like leaning any particular direction, like a floral sweet, a fruity sweet. It's just note of sweet, for lack of better words, right now. Metallic, aquatic, good amount of sweetness, like 4 out of 10. Light and fresh. I don't know about aromatic, but definitely light and fresh. Just for kicks for you guys, I'm going to spray this on skin. EDT concentrations are very tough sometimes because I know some very loud EDTs. Like, for instance, Versace Eros EDT is pretty loud. It's subtle because it's like mysterious, seductive, sweet, but it's loud for it being an EDT. Terre de Hermes EDT, very projective, decently lasting fragrances that will surprise you. And in a lot of cases, sometimes, and I'm going to have to do a debate about this, but sometimes, you think the EDP is fresher. You think the EDP is more balanced between like good projection and performance. parfum should be the most kind of dense, multifaceted, sophisticated. That's kind of what I personally think through in terms of the philosophy behind why in eau de toilette, EDP, and parfum exist. However, that's not always the case with fragrances. Sometimes as you go through EDP, EDT, and parfum concentrations, or eau de cologne or whatever, you actually get an entirely different fragrance. Like Fahrenheit's a great example of that. One fragrance from Fahrenheit might smell to me like burnt gasoline and tires. And then the other one might have more of a seductive sweetness that doesn't really smell very rubbery. So the extraction, the blend does sometimes change the DNA. And I also think that from EDT to parfum or EDC to parfum, they can add other notes in the fragrance. So it's not always like Mercedes-Benz regular to Mercedes-Benz intense. Those fragrances smell the exact same, but one gets more projective, a little bit louder, a little bit longer lasting. So it's like if you like EDT, you might as well get the intense version because it smells the same but performs better, smells a little slightly more elegant. You get a better bang as you move up. But if that was the case with every fragrance, we'd always be getting parfum and not necessarily EDT, EDP, EDC. Nonetheless, in this fragrance, I want to look for you guys and kind of cheat a little bit because really this fragrance is kind of nice. It kind of falls into an Invictus or Invictus Aqua, kind of like upscale cool water. Armaf's Club de Nuit Sillage, Banana Republic, Arctic, Slate. Yeah, just a very basic aquatic, fresh, sweet type of fragrance. I think what's interesting about this in the note breakdown is if you follow me here. Sorry, I have some new updates to my stream because we're doing multiple channels now. So I'm just trying to be cautious on how I navigate. Top notes, we have bergamot, mid lavender, and base you have this liqueur, looks like a dark liquor vibe with moss. So moss is kind of like an earthy pull. We got the freshness, floral of the lavender. It's purple though, because with lavender, it's not just kind of like a white floral. It's almost like a powdery, slightly more intimate floral, but it has a little weight on it. And then just a super fresh bergamot. But that alcohol note is kind of what's providing me, I feel, with this kind of aquatic feeling to it. Let's just check the performance. It does say that it has some longevity to it. I would probably call it moderate. I think you would be lucky to get 8 hours with a fragrance like this. But if you can, I'm certain that from hour 3 to 6 or hour 4 to 8, this is not going to smell as projective and as beautiful as it does in the first half of the performance. In the first half, you really do get kind of that citric opening. You get the soft kind of intimacy of the lavender, and you do kind of, I think it translates more of a basic aquatic. I don't really smell alcohol, but maybe it is contributing to like the kind of sweetness that you're getting, right? Because you can only imagine getting sweetness from the lavender and the liqueur. So maybe that's just contributing to kind of like this caramelized sweetness. And then the moss, I think, is just giving that liqueur like a more earthy touch of aquatic. So if I could summarize this kind of in a nutshell for you guys, I don't want to get too elegant because I don't want to act like this is in a very elegant fragrance. This is an out of the shower, freshy with charm, leaning into the aquatic. And as that type of fragrance alone, as far as purely like DNA and how it smells, I think I would absolutely give it an above average, because a lot of times when you have metallic aquatic sweets, they lean on metallic. They lean on becoming a skin scent. They're not as fresh. They can come across synthetic, and this does not feel synthetic at all. The metallic is balanced just right so it doesn't smell like metal explicitly. The aquatic smells fresh and not fake. The softness of the lavender is there. It almost, it is slightly seductive even from a fresh fragrance category. And I think that's due to the liqueur and lavender. That's a very interesting pairing. I think for as linear of a pairing as this feels on paper, right? I think it's surprisingly pretty beautiful. Like, you'll smell this and think Invictus or something like that, or Banana Republic Arctic Slate. But I actually think this might be the freshest rendition of an aquatic, sweet, slightly floral DNA. Yet somehow it still has some seduction in there with the liqueur and moss. Because think about it. Moss gives it like an earthy sophistication. Liqueur is unique because it's not just sugar. It's not just leaning on the florals from the lavender. I think liqueur and moss is what makes this fragrance special as a freshie with charm in the aquatic category. Had it not had those, this would be such a basic fragrance. The more I come to it, though, I appreciate in the projection how fresh it is. And it sucks to say fresh sometimes even because, let's just go back out for a second. It sucks to just say words like fresh because shouldn't every fragrance be fresh, right? Like, it feels like when I say that to you guys, it's not giving you a lot of ammo to work with in terms of how to visualize this fragrance. But when I say fresh, what I mean is that the notes that it says it has feel very real, okay? So if somebody says a strawberry note and I'm smelling it and I feel like I'm smelling a basket of strawberries, I'm going to say this is extremely fresh, right? Because it has a life to it. It doesn't feel like just cologne-y. It almost jumps out at you. So this fragrance is very much alive. You smell bergamot. You smell this soft lavender that has a little seduction to it. I don't know if you smell liqueur, but I smell sweet aquatic vibes, and how it pairs with the lavender. It's not just totally lavender. It has a sweet candiedness to it, but for a fresh fragrance, it's still very non-synthetic. And then the moss, when I step back and ignore all the notes and just come into it, it feels like this very aquatic, but it's got some earth under it. And I think that that's important because if it's just aquatic, it feels like a lot of fragrances that you've smelled before. So I think this is kind of cream of the crop in terms of an aquatic feel. And again, granted, it doesn't have an aquatic note in it, but I think liqueur is providing that because it is water and liquor. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, as a fragrance, I think it's definitely like solidly above average as an 8 out of 10 fragrance. It's any season, any reason, shines in spring and summer, great out of the shower, great slightly playful date, great upscale casual. It becomes difficult to wear when you put it in semi-formal and formal categories because it's just too light of a fragrance, too fresh of a fragrance, not a ton of signature, but in terms of what it brings to the table, it's very fresh, it's very real, it has a little sophistication for the category that it's in. And the question, I think, ultimately comes down to price. So very quickly, I'm just going to go over to something like a Joma shop for you. And I see a 3.4, which is 100 ml for $86. So, and that's even that what they say compared to retail is 28% off. So $86 would I pay for an upscale Freshy with charm? See, and this is the debate, guys, because as the clone market becomes so much more valid, the word clone starts to not exist. You know, I don't have to preface certain bottles from my collection with my homies with, oh yeah, this is off non-supremacy collector's edition, you know, the clone of Hasselblad or the clone of Aventus. I don't have to say that. Nowadays, when I say to certain people, you know, Club de Nuit, Intense Man, they're not thinking clone in their mind. It gets an identity of its own. I think on content and stuff like that, it's important to make the distinction. However, as more and more of these things become legit, regular just wearers of fragrance that aren't critiquing these things will just call it by its name. So, but my point is that as more clones and inspired fragrances become valid, DNAs like this become too simple to justify paying $100 for a fragrance like this. Now, some people are trying to argue, and I'm glad, I'm going to have to take a snippet of this conversation because this is a whole nother video of conversation, but since it came to my mind, I'm giving it to you with this fragrance. And so I apologize for the run on time because I think you know how I feel about, this fragrance. When you can get a fragrance for $50 and under, the low part of a clone fragrance is 20, the high part is like 40, 50, and then the middle is around $30. When you can get great fragrances, especially in the Freshy with Charm aquatic category, you look at a price tag like $100 and you go, wow, that's 3-4 bottles, and you don't think it's clone. Some people would suggest that actual name brand retailer fragrances have better quality with their ingredients, and many do, but not all of them. You now is more and more becoming the reality that there are super legitimate $20, $30, $40, $50 fragrances that do not cut corners in freshness and in quality and in synthetics. Believe it or not, many fragrance houses always use synthetics with their fragrance. The question is, does it smell good or not? So you're not always, money doesn't always equal value. And as more valid clones come out, you're going to see that. You're going to be hard pressed. Do I spend the extra money or do I get an extra 3-4 bottles of fragrance? And when we talk about Parfums de Marly, Mancera, MFK, all these bigger houses, Creed, one fragrance is the difference between, let's say Aventus. That's like, perhaps 10 or 15 bottles of fragrance versus one fragrance. And I think there are many valid, now there's like 5 or 6 super legitimate clones of Aventus. So to know that you could, for the same price of Creed Aventus, you can get every clone that's ever been made of Aventus and probably get another 5 to 8 bottles for the same price of a Creed fragrance. I was blown away the other day to walk into a perfume store locally here and see somebody, there's interesting stuff going on in FragCom right now. And I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'm starting to see regular perfume local stores try and sell stuff like Club de Nuit and Intense Man for like $80 because they know, to someone considering Creed, it's still much cheaper. But it's like, now they're trying to fool the people because they're trying to capitalize off the fact that not a lot of people know about Club de Nuit Intense Man. I had to show the girl and say, hey, look on my phone here. How do you guys compete with Amazon, who's only charging me $25, $30 for this fragrance you're trying to charge me $80 for? And they're completely bamboozled, because we're just in a crazy time right now. But as more clones come in, it's going to be hard to justify fragrances like Azzaro, the most wanted, Eau de Toilette, even the Parfum, even the EDP. But I think this is an 8 out of 10 fragrance. I do think it's ageless for the category it's in. Again, spring, summer, but any season, any reason due to its freshness. I can appreciate a fragrance in this type of DNA. And I think this might be the most ideal fragrance in terms of retail brands. If you're going for that fresh, aquatic, sweet, floral type of vibe, because it feels the most authentic. Now, comparatively to EDP and Parfum, I think you're actually going to get some different notes in those, but we'll talk about those as they come. I do think there's a ton of DNAs in Banana Republic and in the clone category that you can get for probably $20, $30, 100 ml. But this alone as a fragrance, if you're sitting in the retail store deciding on buying it, I think as long as EDP and Parfum aren't better in your own personal opinion, this is a great buy. It is worth the money. It's worth the money if it's worth the money. I don't see anything bad with a fragrance like this. This smells great, slightly above average. Not a lot of signature, but very fresh. So for this DNA, I think it's cream of the crop. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell so you can know when we're dropping episodes every single day. I do lengthy reviews, my Wheel of Fragrance game show, short reels and strategy guides. I give you guys all my resources for how to extract fragrances as far as travel sizes and decants, best places to shop for fragrances, my game show, and then we go live every week to do a community Q&A. So I am active. You're going to get your value for being on this channel. So if you appreciated the value I brought to this video, please give me a like. This isn't just an automated response. I'm not a bot. I don't replay this. I say this out of my own mouth every time I record this episode to try and communicate that it really is helpful. If you like the video, if you found value from it, if you like the channel, take it a step further and commit to a free subscription so you can be notified of future episodes. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. And this was Azzaro's The Most Wanted Eau de Toilette Intense.